So we have two different challenges here. They're both related to this sample text. And here we have an animal followed by some kind of verb, and at the end, another animal. And there's all this other stuff in the middle. So this is just sort of an example of getting messy text. And we want to do two different things. The first thing is, how many times do we find dog, followed by chases, followed by squirrel in the text? And we have a list of text, so not just one time, but all the way down looking for that. And it could be surrounded by anything else. The second requirement is a little more complicated, but we'll get to that. And we can solve both of these without any programming, really very simple once we break it down. So let's look at the first requirement. Here's our text all the way down. We have a couple thousand, I believe. Let's just look at the range. So this is a table. If we jump all the way down, it's 2,000 different cells with this weird text in here. So here we will select from the drop-down list our first animal. Next, we'll select our verb phrase, and then we'll select the final animal. In this case, all we're going to do is combine the asterisk wildcard, which means any number of characters, and the words that we need. So we go inside of the formula here. When we click in here, the screen tip tells us range, which is this part, which is simply all of our text. Look in each of those cells individually. And then criteria. Now this is the part that I'll explain. All right, so we have our wildcard, our asterisk, meaning any number of characters. And then we say and C2, which is currently set to dog, and another asterisk, which means anything in the middle, and then D2 is chases, another asterisk, and finally E2 is the last animal, and then of course one last wildcard for anything after that. So this tells us 11. So that means that there's 11 different times that we find anything and then dog, anything and then chases, and then anything in squirrel, with possibly something after it. So that's how many times we find it in this column. So we could go in here and change these around and pick anything else, and it will update. So zebra debates with squirrel. There's 4 times that we find that in all of this text. All right, now let's go to the next requirement. It's a little bit longer, but this is kind of cool how you can solve this. So let's just review this. How many times do we find animal 1, which is currently set to dog, followed by any 11 characters? So right now we've selected 11. It has to be 11 characters, not the asterisk, not anything, but it has to be exactly 11 characters, followed by our text or our verb, which is currently set to chases, followed by any 8 characters. So it has to be exactly 8 characters because we selected that here. And of course we could change this to be something else, but currently it's 8. Followed by animal 2, which is squirrel. So this is a little more complicated, but really we can break it down quite easily. Now, we could solve this with thousands of formulas, right? We could, but let's not do that. It's a little bit, we'd have to have a lot of columns here going all the way down. We don't have to do that. Could we solve this using Excel's find feature? Not very easily. I mean, we could. Let's do this. Like over here, I forgot to mention in requirement number 1, we could just highlight the column and then do the find, and we could type in here and say, do the same thing that I have in my dynamic Countif, right, in the requirement area. I could, so here it is right here. Asterisk dog, asterisk chases, asterisk squirrel, asterisk. So meaning anything in there. Let's just click find all. Here we go. We have 11 matches, which is the same that our Countif gave us. And the advantage of this is that we could just easily jump around and go right to that cell. Let me just scroll down a bit. Go right to the cell that has those 3 words. So we have dog, chases, squirrel. Click any of the other links and scroll down a bit. It's off the screen. And we go to the next one that says dog, chases, squirrel. So we could do that for requirement number 1. Let's go back to the top. But we're back in requirement number 2, and that would be kind of tedious. I think we could do it. Let's try it out. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to say, go back in here, and this time I have to go in here and type the question mark 11 times, and now I have to go over here, and this has to be 8 question marks, because it doesn't mean any number of characters. It has to be exactly 11 here and exactly 8 over there. Now let's say find all. Are we going to get 9, the same thing that we have here? So find all, and sure enough, we do. So I'll just kind of increase this so we see all of them. And we click the first one, it's off the screen here. There's the first one. And I don't have the row numbers here, but it's here's the cell, A213. So dog chases squirrel. Let's go to the next one. Just click the link, and it's in cell A910. So there's the next one. So for really quick things, you could just use this and jump around and see where they all are. It does the same thing. That takes a little bit more time. But if you want sort of a permanent solution, and in this case, what we have, it's dynamic. We could change this. Let me just show you here. See how I've even built this so it's dynamic. It says 11 characters. I'm going to change that to 10. And our description updates. We only have only two cases where we have dog, any number of characters, then dog, exactly 10 characters, chases, exactly 8 characters, and then squirrel. And then at the end, you could have some other characters, whatever they might be. Let's change this back to 11, and the 2 becomes 9 again. So I will explain step by step how this thing works. Let me just grab this thing down here, and I think if I put it right about there, you can see it. So basically, we have in our Countif here, we have a range, which is this part, which is simply this text. And all of this stuff is our criteria. And I'm going to explain each little part in here, because if you've written thousands of formulas over many years, you could kind of look at this and really quickly understand what it's doing. However, if you're new to Excel or you don't use Excel that often, that could be a bit difficult to decipher. So I'm going to just go through these steps. We want to combine the asterisk, which we used before, which is any number of characters, and we want to use the question mark, which is in like one character, right? So let's go to the next step. The first thing here is this is purple, you see it here. To start off, it could be any number of characters. Now we're going to say then C2, which is red over here, and it's also red there, which means currently it's set to dog. Now it gets interesting. What is this doing? Well, we're going to use Excel's repeat function to say take that question mark, which means any one character, and we're going to say look in D2, which is set to 11, and repeat that 11 times. So if I go in here and I'm going to highlight this isolated part, just the repeat function, I'm going to highlight this and press the F9 key. You see that we get 11 question marks. And then the same thing over here, I'm going to highlight this. And because we have an 8 here, I press the F9 key and we get 8 question marks. So now I'm going to press the escape key to go back to the formula. I'll just click in there one more time. So we see these different parts. Let's just go there. So E2, which is our text. We're going to repeat, which I just showed you 8 times. So between chases and squirrel, we have exactly 8 characters. And then we're almost done. G2 is our squirrel, or our second animal. And finally, we have the asterisk, which means there could be anything after it at the very end. You see at the end of each cell here, there's a bunch of random numbers and letters. So all of this is what we put together. Let me just click back in here again. Criteria. So here's our criteria. You see all of this stuff, which we also see right there. And you put all that together, and now highlighting all of this stuff, you see how you just click the screen tip, the range, criteria. With this highlighted, I'm going to press the F9 key, and this is exactly what we are looking for, all of this stuff. So I could also copy this without the quotes, and I could put that into the find feature like I did before. But that's how this works. Now, so you can download the file. I'll have it in my on my website, and then I'll have it in my OneDrive. But here's an interesting thing. If we want to also have sort of a dynamic find, let's go back. I'll press Control F, and I can say find all. And we see that we have all 9 of these in here. We could change this around, but if we want to have this dynamically so that we don't have to click in here and redo this every time to jump around to the stuff, I've done one other thing here over on the right hand side. So I'm going to scroll over to the right, and here we have something that I like to play around with. These are sort of dynamic hyperlinks. So if you look inside of here, you see this long formula, but basically it's just saying, okay, I want to find, let's click to the first one. So it's doing the same thing as the find feature. We say dog chases squirrel. Let's go back to the top and click back over here. You could here's the row numbers, and you could just click any of these. Let's go to the last one. We're going to click right there to this dynamic hyperlink, And here is the last one in this column of data where we see dog, 11 characters chases, 8 characters squirrel, and anything after, anything before. So you can go in here and you can change any of these using the drop down, and this will update, which is our dynamic requirement. The formula will update, and as well all of these things over here, all of these dynamic array hyperlinks. Let me just check. Is that an array? No, actually it isn't. It is a dynamic hyperlink, but it is not an array formula. So this was fun to do, and when you walk through all of this, in the end, it doesn't seem that bad. It could save you some time compared to always going like this, Control F, and typing in all of this stuff.